Life has been pretty good so far. I have a lovely wife with whom I have lived for 5 years, two wonderful children aged 4 and 3, both boys. I met my wife through mutual friends about 6 years ago. They say opposites attract, and in our case, that's what happened. In high school, she was the American girl, and I, on the other hand, was the bad boy, in an errand boy sort of way. She went to college, and I got a job in a factory. She was a dressy girl, and I was happy in jeans and a t-shirt. I think you get the point, we were opposites. But we also had something in common, which we'll talk about later. We met at a New Year's Eve party. She was with her beau, some rich guy who probably got his women with money. She didn't look like a woman who could be bought. Most of the people at this party were probably of above-average financial status. Everyone except me, of course. I was just a good old factory worker, but a happy one. I worked 8 hours a day, had good benefits, and almost no stress. You're probably wondering how I got invited to this party in the first place. I was driving home after work one day and saw a broken-down car on the highway. This is exactly the kind of place you don't want to get into an accident during rush hour. Nice, expensive car. As I pulled up next to it, I recognized one of our office managers in the driver's seat. His wife looked distraught beside him. I slowed down in front of their car. "Mr. Bailey, I'm John Davis from the rework department. Is there anything I can help you with?" "I recognize you, John. Thanks for stopping. The stupid thing just stalled. I was lucky I was able to pull away in time. I'm sorry, I should have introduced you. This is my wife, Emma." "How do you do, Mrs. Bailey? It's nice to meet you. I wish it had been under more favorable circumstances. Mr. Bailey, if you'd like to open the hood, I'll take a quick look. I'm pretty good at fixing cars." I called AAA, but they said they wouldn't be here for another 2 hours. "I'll be glad to do what you can." He opened the hood, and I looked around a bit. "Mr. Bailey, have you changed the battery recently?" I asked. "John, you can call me Dan. Actually, we replaced the battery about 2 days ago. Your mechanic left a wrench on the battery, and it must have pinched the battery connectors and given a pulse that stopped your car. Let me take it off and see if it will start. I need to get a pair of gloves. That key is on fire." I went to my truck, got my gloves, and removed the burned black key from the battery. I pulled out my tools I carry in my truck and cleaned the connectors as best I could. "Okay, Dan, give it a try." The car started immediately. I closed the hood, wrapped the burned key in a rag, and handed it to Dan. "Savannah, you might want to take it to the store to have them check the electrical box and make sure there's no other damage. They should also replace your connectors. I cleaned them as much as I could. It should be fine for now." "What do I owe you?" Dan asked. "You don't owe me anything, Dan. I may need some help someday. It was nice to meet you, Emma. Maybe we'll meet again someday." "It was nice meeting you too, John," she said. They left and I got back in my truck and drove home. There's something nice about helping people in need. A couple of days later, while I was working, Mr. Bailey, Dan, came up to me and thanked me again. He told me that he had taken the car to the dealership and they had to replace a significant portion of the wiring. He was told he was lucky the car didn't catch fire. "I'm glad I was able to help Dan," he said. "Emma wanted me to invite you to our New Year's Eve party if you didn't do anything. It's kind of a thank you for helping me. If you want, you can bring a date. If not, there will be a few eligible ladies there." He held out the invitation to me. "Thanks, Dan, but I'll probably come alone. Thanks to Emma for the invitation. I understand this is a suit and tie event." "Dress however you want, John. It's a party after all. The idea is to have fun." I put on slacks, a blue button-down shirt, and a sports jacket. That's about how I dressed. I was greeted by Dan and Emma, who in turn introduced me to a few other people, including Kara and her date Rob. Kara is a beautiful woman, and she was very dressed up. She smiled at me and said, "Hi, John. Nice to meet you." Ray, on the other hand, turned out to be just as I had imagined him to be, an arrogant man who had money. Kara and Ray worked in the same office. Emma was a silent partner in the firm, but worked there too, unaware that she was a middle manager. We'll talk about Emma later. Ray was busy kissing the asses of the higher-ups, so I approached Kara and asked her to dance. We hit it off right away. We danced, and she told me a little about her life. She said that Ray and she worked in the same office. She didn't like him very much, but she agreed to be his date to this party. She knew all the people from her office who were there, She didn't know many of Dan's friends. I told her about myself, which I thought would be embarrassing because I'm not the kind of person who has money, nor do I have any. But it didn't embarrass her. I think she was pretty independent. We danced probably 4 dances in a row before she remembered she was with Ray. She left to find him. I danced with a few other girls, but it wasn't quite the same. When they found out I wasn't from money, most left after the first dance. I decided they needed husbands. Love didn't matter in the slightest to these women. Money was the key to their success in life. At midnight, everyone shouted Happy New Year and kissed each other. I was looking for Kara when I saw her standing there. I asked her for a New Year's kiss and she kissed me. Senna. I asked her about the date and she said she thought he was dating one of the secretaries. I asked if she was ready to leave and I drove her home. She stared at me at first, but then we said goodbye to Emma and Dan and left the party. Kara, I'm not ready to take you home. Could you go to the other party I was invited to? John, I don't know why I left with you. Ray's going to be mad on Monday about me leaving him. Tell him you saw him making out with his secretary and decided to leave. I'm sure that's probably what he was doing. Please come with me. If for no other reason, do it for me. I want to show you off. You're the best-looking one on my date. But I'm not your date. You will be if you come to the party with me. Come on, Kara, live a little. She smiled at me, and I drove to one of the neighborhood parties where I knew my friends would be. Everyone I knew said hello to us. Everyone remarked on what a beautiful woman Kara was. They asked me tons of questions about her, but I knew nothing about her. We had a lot of fun at the party. She was accepted by almost everyone, although some of the women were jealous of her. We partied for a couple more hours before we left. I drove her home. She still lived with her parents, but they were away for the weekend. Do you want to come over, John? She asked. Only if we're busy, I replied. We just met today, John. What will you think of me next? What I think of you now will be much better later. I might fall in love with you if I haven't already. I could see her trying to figure out if it was the right thing to do or not, if she should or shouldn't. I wasn't going to wait for an answer. I took her hand and walked her to the door. She gave me the key and we walked into the foyer. She took off her coat and we headed to her bedroom. Not a word was said. We started dating and eventually got married. Her parents weren't thrilled about us getting married, but Kara was firm and told them we would elope if we didn't have a wedding. This was not customary in her parents' society. They threw us a very large wedding. I even felt out of place at it. The only people I knew were Mom and Dad, Dan and Emma, and of course Ray, since she invited her whole office. I invited a few buddies from work, but they didn't come to the wedding. They gave us cards and gifts, but said they would have felt out of place. As a wedding gift, her parents gave us $50,000 for a down payment on a house. We bought a fairly modest house, but it was still unaffordable. I worked overtime to help with the payments. Kara never complained about our money situation. I don't know if her parents gave her a little extra now and then or not. Kara knew I wanted to be the head of the family and wanted her parents to help me as little as possible. Shortly after we were married, she got pregnant. We didn't have to get married. We just made love day and night for a few weeks after the wedding. Our son, Jimmy, was born. Kara took a leave of absence from work to be with the baby. About 2 months later, she started working part-time again. The money came in handy for us. A little over a year later, our second son, Jerry, was born. We kept our names with an E. Jimmy, Jerry, and me, John. I hoped it would be a few more years before we had children. Kara decided to take birth control. She took another vacation that was supposed to last 2 months and then returned to work part-time. But instead, we got some bad news. My plant was closing and was going to be merged with another plant 2 states away. I'll tell you, I was shocked. It was all I knew. I had worked there since I was in high school, and now I was about to lose my job. I came home and talked to Kara about the options they offered us. We could move to Illinois, live in Ohio, or get severance pay that depended on seniority. All of this had to happen within 60 days. Kara said she didn't want to leave the state. Both of our families were here and she felt the children should see their grandparents. There weren't many job openings in our town. Kara came up with the idea that I should be a stay-at-home dad. Her job, if she worked full-time, paid $80,000 a year. I never knew about it. We never discussed it at all. She didn't take money from her parents. She earned it on her own. I asked her why she never told me about it, and she said that many men feel inferior when their wives earn more than they do. She said that I am in no way inferior to anyone. She loves me with all her heart, and we can overcome this obstacle. At that point, we really had no choice. I became a stay-at-home dad. It's been almost a year now. In fact, things are even better, except for the diapers. I take my sons to the park almost every day. I talk to all the other moms and nannies. I'll tell you, these women say all kinds of nasty things. They didn't seem to care that there was a guy in their midst. Listening to some of them talk was worse than the locker room talk I heard in the gym. I get offers almost every day. I don't know if they all did it seriously or not. I'm sure some of them did. I have to say something. Not all the women in the park were proposing to themselves. Only half a dozen out of 30 were in on the gesture. I don't want anyone to assume that all women are like that. I connect with other moms too. I learn a lot about kids, cleaning, and what women don't get from their husbands. This has helped me a lot with Kara. Lately, I've been getting recipes from some of them. They would bring me a sample, and if I liked it, I would try cooking it. Over the course of a year, I became a pretty good cook. Kara came home and wanted to talk to me. She said they had hired new managers and transferred a few people from other offices. "You look a little worried, honey. What's the matter? What's bothering you?" I asked. "There's good news. They've hired Dan, Emma's husband, for a position in the office. I'm not quite sure what his duties are yet or exactly who he works for," she said. "Honey, that's good news. Dan is a good man, and I'm glad he was able to get a decent position." I mentioned at the beginning of the story that Emma was a silent partner but worked in the upstairs office. We didn't know that at the time. We found out much later. "John, I know you don't like Ray," I interrupted Kara. "You said Ray was transferred to West Virginia when you went full-time." "Yes, but he's being transferred back. He'll be here next month. I just felt I had to tell you, that's all." "That's not all, is it, Kara?" I read it on her face. "No, he's coming back as my boss. I asked to be transferred to another department, but they turned me down. Apparently, I'm too valuable to transfer. I talked to my boss, William, and he's being transferred to Arizona because he's having trouble breathing. So I'm the only one who knows our department besides Ray." "Why didn't they just promote you?" I asked the same question. It seems Ray knew about William's departure and asked for the job. He's already working at that level and has seniority above me, so he got the position. Then, you want me to go and beat the crap out of him before he tries anything with you?" "John, does that make sense to you? He might not try to do anything. He's just so pushy I don't know what to think. I'll keep working on the translation. I didn't want to worry you about Ray, but I didn't want you to find out from someone else either." "You did the right thing to tell me, dear. Thank you for being such a good wife." Chapter 2. For the rest of the month, all was well. The next month, Ray came back, and Kara always came home later and often upset. She hardly ever played with our boys. Sometimes she didn't eat dinner. I had to find out what the problem was. The next time she came home upset, I told her we needed to talk. "What's the matter, Kara? Is Ray hitting on you?" I asked. "Not really, John. He just makes jokes and tries to touch my arm or hand when we're alone with him. He talks about what he used to think of me, and things like that." "Isn't there anyone you can tell, anyone you can talk to?" "And tell them this, John. Sir, I dated Ray before I was married, and now he's talking to me. John, I can't prove anything. I even put a tape recorder in the drawer, but he never says anything to me when we're in my office. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm just paranoid. Honey, if he ever tries anything with you, will you tell me, or will you keep it a secret?" "I honestly don't know, John. I guess it depends on what he's going to try to do. For example, if he tries to kiss me and I tell him no, and he backs off, I probably wouldn't tell you. You'd go and kill him, and I'd be without you. I love you, John, and I would never do anything to hurt you. All I ask, Kara, is that if you have any problems with Ray or any other guy, let me know." After our conversation, things got better. Kara still had to stay late at work a couple times a week, but she looked happy when she got home. I cooked simple dinners because of the kids, but at least once a week we got out for a real meal. I felt a little awkward when we went out with other people. Nevertheless, the image of my father sitting at home was ever present. It didn't bother Kara or me, except when others brought it up, especially if they joked about it. I was still a man, and it was hard to explain that I still cared for my family, but in a different way. I had a nasty temper as well as jealousy, so My friends knew where to draw the line in talking to us. The husbands of some of Kara's friends didn't see it that way, and a couple times I met them outside for a few minutes to deal with them. I never mentioned this to Kara, but she wondered why some of her friends didn't see us as much. I remember one day we were out with a snobby couple. It was some old friend of Kara's. I only met them at the wedding. Mary seemed quite normal, but her husband Robert, as he preferred to call himself, was an arrogant jerk. At our table, he made snide remarks about how a man should be the head of the family. When I got tired of his nagging, I smiled at him and asked him to show me his new Porsche. Of course, he immediately jumped up to show it off. We told the girls we would be right back. We went to the parking lot and walked over to his car. I pushed him facing the car, grabbed his hand and put it behind his back. I punched him twice in the kidneys and told him off. "You arrogant bastard, I'm sick of your shit. When we get back there, if you make one more remark about me sitting at home, I will throw your goddamn head out the window of your goddamn precious car. Do we understand each other?" "Yes, yes, I'm sorry, John, I'm sorry, please don't hurt me." "Let's go back inside, you sweet ass, and you better act normal," I said. We went back to the house and I told Kara that it was a beautiful car and that she deserved one just like it. She replied that I was a very nice person and that she would have one someday, but for now she was happy with her car. She drove a decent car, a Mercury, but it was a few years old. Because of the kids, I traded my truck for a van. We needed more room than we had in my truck. During this whole conversation, Robert didn't utter a word. I saw his wife look at him several times, probably wondering why he was so quiet. One day, Kara came home from work and said she wanted to see a play. She asked Mary if she and Robert wanted to go with her, but Mary refused. After some persuasion, Mary told Kara that Robert didn't like me and didn't want to go out with us. I think Mary told Kara about the time I hit Robert in the parking lot. I wondered how he told the story, since this nice guy didn't even fight back. Kara was mad at me. She told me that maybe she should go to the play with Mary and Robert and leave the caveman at home, meaning me. "Screw you and them if that's what you want. I don't want to see the damn play anyway." "Hey, I have an idea. Ask your boss Ray to go with you. I'm sure Robert would approve, since they both want to get in your pants." I have a tendency to observe people, and while we were eating dinner, I remember Robert looking at Kara meaningfully. She may have dated him before we met. We never talked about our past acquaintances, and that was a good thing. I was having fun with almost every woman I passed by. Now Kara was mad at me too. "Maybe I am," she replied, as we entered the room with the kids. Neither of us apologized, and she began to get ready for Saturday's play. I wanted to ask her who was going, but I didn't want to start anything. It had only been 2 days since our fight, and we were barely speaking anymore. I called out to the boys, "Come on, guys, let's go to McDonald's for dinner." I didn't even say goodbye to Kara. "What about Mom, Dad? Isn't she coming with us?" "No, she has a date with friends. Maybe you'll see her tomorrow when you get up. I'm sure she'll be out late tonight." Kara looked at me. She did. I may have asked for it myself. "You bastard, you have no reason to talk to me like that. You're the one who didn't want to go to the play. As for coming home late, maybe I won't come at all." Kara beckoned our sons over to her. "Jimmy, Jerry, Mom is going to a play tonight with some friends. It's not a children's play, so Daddy will watch you. I'll see you tomorrow and we'll go to the park, okay?" "Can Daddy come to the park with us, Mommy?" Jimmy asked. "That's up to Daddy if he wants to go. We'll see you in the morning. Just remember that Mommy loves you. Now run with Daddy and have fun at McDonald's." She kissed them both and went to get ready. I was really feeling lousy. We didn't fight often, but when we did, it was always like this. My damn temper and jealousy, and she wouldn't back down an inch. There wasn't much I could do about it now, but I hoped it was just a fight and Kara would get over it. The kids were having fun playing at McDonald's. I got them each a kid's meal, and they liked the toy inside better than the meal. They played in the playroom, and I did a little people watching. A few pretty women came in with their kids. I watched some of them, and I felt like they were watching me. Probably thought I was a divorced dad taking his kids out to eat. Hell, who knows, maybe I was. God, what was I thinking? My brain was working overtime. I didn't like my own thoughts. I know for a fact that if she ever cheats on me, I'm going to kill the bastard and divorce her. After the kids played for about an hour, we went to the airport to watch airplanes take off and land. The boys loved it so much. "Look, Daddy, here comes a big one, see? It's coming, see, Daddy." They would ask me about it every time an airplane showed up, which was often if you were at the airport. By the time we got home, it was starting to get dark. I bathed them and then put them to bed. They looked like two little angels. They were very good boys. They could talk better than I could as a baby. God, how I loved them, and how much I enjoyed being around them. Ever since Ray came back to town, the only thing I missed was Kara. Meeting after meeting, time away from our family, I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. I lay on the couch and watched whatever the TV was showing. I think it was a children's cartoon channel. I just wanted noise. Around midnight, I heard a car pull into the garage. I heard Kara get out of the car and come into my room. I pretended to be asleep so she wouldn't bother me. I didn't feel like dealing with this right now. I watched her check on the boys and then went and took off her dress. She must have decided to take a shower. She put the clothes in the laundry basket in the bathroom, showered, and got into bed. I waited about an hour before getting up. I had to pee, but I wanted to make sure she was asleep. After peeing, I walked over to the clothes hamper. I had never mistrusted her in my life, but now I checked her clothes. I couldn't help it. I had to see if there was anything out of the ordinary. She just seemed to be sweating. Hopefully, nothing scary had happened. I went back and fell asleep on the couch. In the morning, I got up and saw the play program on the table. It looked like she had gone to the play, but with whom? I wasn't going to ask her, let her tell me. The boys were already awake and wanted pancakes for breakfast. While I was making the pancakes, the boys went and jumped into bed with their mom. I heard them telling her about the prize they got at the baby food fundraiser and what they were playing. Then I heard her ask them what Daddy was doing while they were playing. "He was just watching us, Mommy," she said. "Did he sit with anyone?" "No, Mommy, he was sitting in the nursery watching us play." What the hell was that? She walks away and doesn't trust me, damn her. Maybe I'll give her an excuse. She could take the boys to the playground herself. The boys came into the kitchen and were eating their pancakes. Kara came in and tried to make polite conversation with me, but I didn't reciprocate. She ate 2 pancakes, sat down at the table, and started talking to the boys. Before she could ask if I was going to the park, I told her I had plans for today. She would have to spend time with the kids without my presence. "Where are you going?" she asked. "Plans, I have plans. I'm going to meet some friends. I need to get away by myself," I replied. I could tell she was angry. She had done the exact same thing to me the night before by pissing on her. I wasn't her damn slut. I went and put on a nice shirt and pants. I told the boys to enjoy the park with their mother and walked out of the house. I didn't have anywhere to go. I just wanted to get even. How stupid can you be? Our marriage had become a walking time bomb that neither of us could stop. We were both too hard-headed to put an end to the stupidity. I sat at the airport for about an hour. Deciding they were going to leave for the park, I headed home. I hadn't been there 5 minutes when the phone rang. It was Mary. She wanted to apologize for not going to the play. "You didn't go to the play, Mary?" I asked. "No, that's why I want to apologize to Kara. I acted stupidly and unwisely. Please ask her to call me when she gets home. Okay, John?" "Of course I will. Thank you for calling," I replied. Now I was starting to get angry. If she didn't go with Mary and freaking Robert, who did she go with? Probably with freaking Ray. Shit, I was pissed. I couldn't even think straight. The bars were open, so I decided to go and tie one up. It was something I hadn't done in years. I headed to the local diner where my old friend Julie worked. She was actually the owner of the place. She was about 15 years older than me, but she was a good person to talk to. "Hey, John. It's funny to see you here. I haven't seen you in months without the little lady attached to your arm. What can I get you?" "Snap. Give me 3 double whiskeys to start and 3 beers, please, Julie." "Going to quit, old boy? Need someone to talk to?" "Not now, Julie. Maybe later. Right now I'm just going to kick myself. Do I have a good credit history in case I run out of money, Julie?" "Your credit history is always top-notch, John. If you need anything, just ask." The establishment was nearly empty. A few early visitors and a barfly. It was an older woman who would probably do anything for a drink. I drank and drank until I was hungover. The barfly, hell, I didn't even know her name, came over when I was worked up and sat next to me in the booth. I waved for Julie to get the broad a drink. Baba thanked me, drank right down, and asked if I wanted to keep her company. Julie came over and told the broad to back off. She told her I was her friend and married. Julie told her to get the hell out and leave her customers alone. Without saying a word, I told Julie she chased her client away. She didn't need to do that. Shit, John, that damn broad will be back tomorrow. You remember her, old Margaret? Hell, you probably entertained her 7 or 8 years ago. Julie laughed. I'd still be entertaining her now if you hadn't chased her away, I replied. John, you wouldn't be able to get up right now if your life depended on it. I've summoned a traveling companion for you. Try to stay awake until she gets here if you can. I was almost out of energy. I looked at the door and Kara walked in. Julie had called her to come and get me. The two of them helped me into the car. My sons were laughing at me from the back seat. I heard Kara thank Julie for calling her. Kara told her that we would be there to pick up the car in the morning. I passed out and Julie let me sleep in the car with the garage door down. When I woke up, it was completely dark outside. My God, it was 3:30 in the morning. Staggering, I walked into the house and headed for the bathroom. I peed and was close to throwing up. Luckily, there was no trouble. I went back into the house, laid down on the couch, and fell asleep. The next moment, Kara woke me up and told me that we needed to talk, that the situation was getting out of hand. She has a full day of meetings today and tomorrow, but we need to talk at the earliest opportunity. She said she talked to our neighbor who is taking me to get the van. He will be there at 10. She said she was running late and had to leave. Kissing me lightly on the cheek, she said she loved me and walked out the door. I got up, made some coffee, and waited for the boys to wake up. I barely remembered what had happened the night before, but I did remember Mary's phone call. She and Robert hadn't gone to the play. I had a hell of a headache, so I took a couple ibuprofen tablets, hoping to dull the pain. I gave the boys porridge and made them get dressed. I got dressed myself and waited for my neighbor. We all got into his van and he drove us to get our van. I told him thank you and apologized for the inconvenience. That's okay, John. I've had more than one ride when I was younger, he replied. I buckled the boys in and we hit the road. I found myself driving to Kara's office. I took the boys with me to her office. It was their first time seeing how their mom's office was set up. I approached her secretary and was told that Kara wasn't working today. I asked to get Ray, but was told he wasn't in the office either. Where the hell are they? I'm her husband. I'm sorry, Mr. Poole. They're at a company meeting at the Holiday Inn, she said. I was about to leave when Dan came up to me. John, how are you doing? He asked. Not the best, Dan. I came to see my wife and found she wasn't here. She's at the Holiday Inn with that damn freak, Ray. He was stunned by my statement and asked me to come into his office. The boys sat in the hallway while I talked to Dan. What does all this mean, John? Is Ray making inappropriate signs of attention to Kara? I find that hard to believe. This is the first I'm hearing about it, he said. I'm not sure what's going on, but that's why I came here to find out. John, they're having a meeting at the Holiday Inn. I know that for a fact. They'll be there again tomorrow. Don't do anything you'll regret until I call you back. Thanks, Dan. You've always been a friend to me. He went out and talked to the guys for a few minutes. He really was a good guy. He and Emma were a good couple. It was a good thing he had found a job with this company. The guys and I left and I drove past the Holiday Inn. In the parking lot, I saw Kara and Ray's cars parked side by side. Heading home, I felt uneasy. As we entered the room, the answering machine flashed. It was a message from Kara. John, I'm sorry, dear, but this meeting is going to last longer than we planned. Proceed to dinner without me. I'll talk to you when I get home. Give the boys a kiss for me. Love you. What was I left to think? She'd never told me the meeting would take place at the motel. I wasn't supposed to be here when she got home. I took the boys and went to my mom's house. I left Kara a note and told her I would probably see her tomorrow. Today, we stayed at my mom's house. I just signed it John. No love, John. I didn't know how I felt at that moment. Nothing seemed right. Tomorrow, I was going to go to the Holiday Inn myself and get this shit over with. Chapter 3. Around 9 p.m., my mom's phone rang. I knew it was Kara. She must have just gotten home. I told my mom to answer it and tell Kara that the boys had already gone to bed and I wasn't in the mood to talk. I'll see you tomorrow. I could hear my mom saying it was useless, that I was being too pushy. My mom liked Kara, unlike how Kara's parents felt about me. Eventually, my mom said she would work it out and that I would see her tomorrow. Mom turned to me. John, there is something wrong here. You and Kara need to talk and work things out. She was crying when we hung up the phone. I don't care what you think. Kara loves you and you need to get your head in order. Arguing with my mom was useless. It was probably from her that I got that bull-headed gene. I moved to the couch and tried to sleep. I was used to sleeping on the couch by now. I got up the next morning trying to figure out what I was going to do. So much circumstantial shit, but it adds up. I was supposed to meet Kara today. I decided to go to the Holiday Inn and figure it out for myself. I asked my mom to watch the boys so I could talk to Kara. Mom was glad that I was at least giving Kara a chance to explain everything. I headed to the Holiday Inn. First, I looked for their cars. I saw their cars in the side parking lot. I walked in through the side entrance and saw a sign that said there was a meeting here. The doors were open so I could hear what was going on. There were about 10 people sitting around an oval table. I peeked inside, but no one noticed me. Kara was sitting next to Ray, the bastard. I listened to the conversation outside the door. The person I was talking to said that they would break for an hour to eat lunch and then meet up to finish work. They should finish early today. I quickly went out to the van and waited for everyone to leave. They stayed there to eat lunch, but I saw Kara and Ray come out of the side door. I rolled down the window to hear what they were talking about. "What do you want, Ray? I don't want to be here with you. Some might take it the wrong way, and I have enough problems at home," Kara said. "Does your little house daddy miss you? Does he think you have a lover?" Ray asked. "Stop it, Ray. What you and I had, or rather never had, was 6 years ago, before I met John. When are you going to get it into your head that I want nothing to do with you? Why do you make it so hard for us? Don't you realize I don't need you? I need my husband, John. Come on, Kara, what does he have that I don't? Besides, he's a stay-at-home dad and you're the breadwinner. When are you going to want a real man like me and ditch his candy ass? John is twice, no, 10 times, better than you can hope for. You're lucky I don't tell him how much you piss me off. He'd kick your ass next week. Now leave me alone." "You think I'm afraid of a homeboy? Come here." He raised his hand to grab her, but she pulled back to slap him. He reached up and grabbed her shoulder. "Come on, Kara, is that all you have in you to fight?" I jumped out of the van and was on his ass in 3 seconds. I saw him open his mouth and Kara said, "John, what are you doing here?" "Doing what I should have done months ago," I replied. I punched him. He still couldn't throw a single punch. He continued to use his hands, trying to defend himself. I heard crying behind me and Kara yelling, "Stop, John, please stop." 2 patrol cars pulled up and the officers told me to get on the ground. Apparently, I wasn't lying down fast enough as they yelled at me again. "Get on the ground, arms out to your sides, legs spread." One of the officers put his knee on the middle of my back, took my hands and snapped the handcuffs behind my back. Then 2 officers put me on my feet. I told them, "Officer, my hands hurt. I can barely feel them." They took me to the patrol car, at which time an ambulance pulled up, and the paramedics approached Ray and began to render aid. The officer asked one of the paramedics to come over and look at my hands. He told him they were swollen and covered in blood. I didn't know if it was my blood or Ray's blood. The paramedic turned out to be a black guy named Jim. He looked decent. He asked the officer to uncuff me, but the officer refused, saying he couldn't trust me without handcuffs. "Yeah, kid, I'm Jim. What's your name?" "My name is John. My hands hurt like hell, Jim. Nothing broken?" "If you think your arms look bad, you should see how you finished that guy over there. John, you did a great job on him. You're lucky all your fingers aren't broken. What the hell happened? What did he do to deserve a whipping like that? You don't look like a bad person." "He jumped on my wife, and when he grabbed her, I snapped. I can't let that bastard mess around with my wife, even if he is her boss." "John, you're in deep shit. He told the officer he wanted to charge you with assault with intent to commit murder." "I didn't intend to kill him, but I may have overreacted a little." "What's the matter with my hands, Jim?" "You hit a couple blood vessels. They're pretty swollen, but nothing broken. You must have hit him on the hard part of his skull, or with a belt buckle or something. I put a bandage on them, but when they take you back to your cell, I'll tell them to ice them or let me wet them to bring down the swelling." "Thanks, Jim. I think you're fine." "I'm glad of that after what you did to that guy. Good luck to you, John. And for that matter, if he did what you said, he deserved it." I was put in a patrol car and taken to my cell. I looked back. Ray was being laid in the ambulance and Kara was sitting in the patrol car. She was being interviewed. Kara was telling her story. "I'm sitting here, scared to death. I have to go before the board of directors and tell them what happened yesterday. They want to know why my husband beat up my boss, Ray. Let me go back to the beginning, before I even met John. I'll try not to repeat everything you already know. As you already know, I met John at a New Year's Eve party. Before that, I had been dating Ray for a few months. Before that, I was a popular girl. My family had money, not the richest, but we lived well. I went to the best schools, wore the fanciest clothes. I socialized with rich kids, or as we say, kids who come from money. Not all of them were bad kids. Most of them were pretty normal. We just got what we wanted. In college, I lost my virginity at one of the parties. I wasn't a slut. The number of men I was with could be counted on the fingers of one hand. When I started working at Bookbindings Inc., I was quite popular. I was in marketing and got along with just about everyone. That's where I met Ray. We were on equal footing, but he had started working there about a year before I got there. We started dating, and he was like the guys I knew. He was rich and arrogant. He thought only of himself. After Christmas, I made the mistake of sleeping with him once. It sucked. I only went to the New Year's Eve party with him because it was planned long before our so-called fun and we worked together. I wasn't going to sleep with him again. It's ridiculous to call it a dream. It would have been nicer if I had slept together. At the party, I met John. He was a bad boy I shouldn't have been hanging out with. When we left the party and went dancing among his friends, it reminded me of the movie Titanic, where Rose went with Jack and had the time of her life. That's exactly what happened to me and to John. I didn't want it to end. I knew there was more to life, and I felt it with John. When he drove me home, I knew there would be. He was fantastic. He was the lover of my dreams, the man I had thought about all these years. I knew I would marry him if he said yes. My parents and brothers were against me marrying John. I told them I loved him and that they could either be a part of our lives or not. The choice was theirs. They bumped and hissed, but eventually agreed to the marriage. John and I, as you know, have 2 sons. They are the loves of our lives. After each of them were born, I took vacations to be with them. I hated even working part-time away from them. They were our little boys and depended on John so much. John lost his job. We didn't know what to do. I told John I could go back to work full-time and he could look after the boys. At first he thought it was a stupid idea. After all, he was supposed to be the breadwinner. Quality work was scarce in our neighborhood. Eventually, I went back to work and John stayed home with the boys. In a way, I became jealous of John. I loved him with all my heart, but he was home, and I was supposed to be with my boys. I was also worried about John and the other moms at the park. He doesn't know that women think he is handsome. I worry every day that he will leave me for one of these women. I even questioned the boys about what Daddy did when he went out with them. I was afraid of losing him. Then I started working longer hours and saw him less and less. I knew it was hurting our marriage, but what could I do? We had to work to survive. I know I'm not the best American. It's hard for a working woman to balance everything. Work, family, loving her husband, helping around the house, all the responsibilities. I was dumping more and more on John and doing less and less for him. I was worried. And then Ray moved here and was going to be my boss. I don't like him, and John didn't know that I had already done it once with Ray before I met him. We never discussed our sex life before marriage. We both decided it was unacceptable. Now the job was tearing me away from the man I loved and putting me next to a man I despised. I was torn between what to do. Ray kept hitting on me, and I was afraid to tell John about it. I knew what he would do, but he ended up doing it anyway. John has a bad temper and jealousy. He cares a lot about what is his. I love that about him, and at the same time, I hate it. I feel safe when he's around. It pissed me off that people made fun of John. I didn't know if I should talk about it or not. If I spoke up in front of John, I knew it would make him angry. He knew how to fight on his own, but at the same time, he was my man, and I wanted to stand up for him. I told many of my girlfriends that if they had a problem with John, we didn't need to be friends. I stood up for him when he couldn't stand up for himself. I told Mary and Robert to go to hell. John meant more to me than they did. Mary called and apologized, and I realized I had been wrong in my attitude toward John. I think my friends' husbands were actually jealous of John. He could live his life and be with his family. His masculinity was safe while these girlfriends' husbands were constantly on the road and worried about money. John received a call from Mary and learned that they had not gone to the play with me. Now John was getting suspicious of Ray again. He pissed me off so often, always accusing me of having affairs. even though I never did anything wrong. We all say stupid things in the heat of an argument. That's what I did when I told him I might be having an affair. I should have known he would snap. We're both so bullheaded. We needed to communicate more and talk about our problems. I was afraid to tell him that our meeting would be at the Holiday Inn. I knew he would think it was wrong, and he did. There were 20 people at the meeting the first day, and it ran late. I called him, and he dumped me. I didn't know what to do. I called his mother, a wonderful person, but she said she knew he wouldn't talk to me. I went to bed devastated. I cried all night. The next day was our last meeting. I thought that after the meeting, John and I could go somewhere and be alone together. I love him so much. During lunch, Ray asked me to walk me outside. I told him off and slapped him when he tried to touch me. The rest is history. John beat the shit out of him. I was so afraid John would destroy Ray and I would lose my John forever. Now he's in a jail cell, and I'm sitting here getting ready to tell my story to the board of directors. I'm scared, and I don't have my John to protect me. Chapter 4. Here I am, sitting in a jail cell. I'm being charged with assault with intent to maim or injure. Funny, but that's exactly what I was going to do. Looks like I'm guilty. They didn't charge me with murder because I didn't have any weapons. I didn't even have my car keys. I left them in the van when I jumped out. I wet my hand in a bucket full of ice when I was in the cell. Damn, they hurt like hell. They're still swollen, and there are a few cuts and abrasions on them. According to Jim, they should be better in a couple days. My bail has been set at $100,000. I can post bail and get out with $10,000. I tried to call Kara but kept dialing the answering machine. Apparently, I'd left her enough trouble. An officer came to my cell. He said my bail was posted and I needed to sign some papers, after which I could be released. I was only here for one night. Where did Kara get the money? I walked up to the front desk and there stood my father-in-law. A man I probably hadn't spoken 50 words to in 5 years. Had he really loaned us the money to bail me out? John, we need to talk. Kara called me and told me about your situation. I'm very sorry about that. You see, Kara opened our eyes last Saturday. Mr. Carson, what happened last Saturday? Kara went to the play last Saturday. Yes, she went with my wife and me. She said there was a misunderstanding between you two. We told her we didn't think you were right for her and she put us on the spot. She told us how she felt about you and how much she loved you. She told us how much Jimmy and Jerry love you and that most husbands are jealous of you. She called you her knight in shining armor, and yesterday you proved it. You protected my daughter, your wife. I'm very sorry for the way I have treated you over the years, and I apologize to you. I'm also a pretty tough person, and it's hard for me to act that way. I apologize to you, and I hope we can be better friends. I hope my 2 sons can live up to your standards. Thank you, Mr. Carson, for bailing me out. I would like to become friends with you and Mrs. Carson. Your daughter loves you very much, and it's hard for her when she has to choose who to be with. Right now, I need to find out how long I can be sent away for. I may need you to look after my family. John, we're going to fight this. I know Kara and she doesn't lie. She may not always tell the whole story, but she won't lie about it. Right now, we need to get you home with your boys. Kara is in her office right now, and we'll try to explain what happened. Mr. Carson dropped me off at my house. Kara left me a note in case I was out on bail. Honey, I'm at the office trying to find a job. Please don't leave if you get home before I do. I miss you so much. I took the boys to your mom's. John, you have to believe me. I love you with my whole being. I hope you'll be there for me when I get home. Love you, Kara. I'm pretty sure Kara wasn't cheating on me with Ray, but now we had other problems. I walked over to the fridge to grab a beer when I heard Kara's car parked in the garage. I quickly grabbed another beer and opened it. As soon as Kara walked in, I held one out to her. Sacrifice of reconciliation for all the shit I've done. I love you and I know we can get through this if you stay with me. Kara, I'm a fool for not believing you to the end. Please forgive me if you can. Tears came to my eyes because I really meant what I said. Kara cried and reached up and hugged me. I was still holding my beer in both hands. Honey, could you take one of these before I spill it? She smiled at me through her tears. John, I love you so much. I've never cheated on you. I never even thought about it. Please believe me. I just didn't tell you everything because, well, now you know why. Now I'm going to tell you. Maybe we can nip this in the bud before it goes too far. I wanted to tell you what was going on, but Then you started blaming me, and we're both a bit hard-headed. We need to talk more often, she said. I agree. No more secrets or untold stories. When your father bailed me out, I was surprised to see him. He apologized to me and said you told them off and stood up for me. He said you went to the play with him and Mom. All this time you didn't tell me. Like I said, you kept accusing me of wanting Ray and accusing me of dating him. I got angry and just said, to hell with it, you can believe whatever you want. I've never cheated on you and I've always been on your side. It's just that you didn't see it. You assumed the worst. What a fool I was. You're right. We need to talk some more. Will you tell me what happened at the factory today? I wasn't really brought up to speed. You won't believe this, but I went before the board of directors to give our side of the story and what led up to it. And Emma was on the board. I almost shit my pants when I saw her. No wonder Dan got the job so easily. If I was on the council, I would have hired you, she said. I talked to Dan the other day and he told me not to do anything stupid until he contacted me. I should have obeyed, but when that creep started stalking you, I lost my mind. I'm so sorry, honey. John, you never have to apologize for protecting me. It's one of the things I love you for. You're my hero, she smiled. Your hero is going to jail soon if I don't find a way out of this mess, I replied. So what happened at this meeting? Emma started by telling me that she cared about you and thought you must have been furious to do what you did. I told her about how Ray tried to hit on me and I rejected his advances, but he wouldn't stop. She said I had to come to the council and report Ray. I said I had no proof that it was his word against mine. One of the other board members said I should have reported the incident to be put on my personnel file. After a few complaints, they were supposed to take disciplinary action. I went and told them everything that happened, and when Ray grabbed my arm, you jumped out of the van and protected me. Did they say anything else? They talked to Ray at the hospital and his story was very different. They said you beat Ray badly, and he filed an assault report against you. He'll be in the hospital for another day or two. They asked me if I wanted to file a sexual harassment report against Ray. I asked what would be the point, since I had no proof anyway. Emma pulled me aside and said, Kara, trust me, file a report. I did as Emma advised and applied. The council told me to take the rest of the week off and come back on Monday when they would have a chance to look at all the evidence and make a decision. I asked if there was still a vacancy and the council member told me they would let me know on Monday. Geez, honey, I've screwed up big time this time, I said. We had a few days to be with the boys. There was nothing we could do for now, so we told the boys we would take them to the zoo as a family. After the zoo, we went to their McDonald's diner and then they wanted to see some airplanes for a while. Let me tell you, it was so much better when we did it as a family. Even the fries tasted better. We put the boys to bed and Kara asked me if we were going to do anything now. She didn't have to ask twice. The next morning, we got a call from Kara's dad's lawyer. He told us not to worry and that Kara's father would pay all the legal fees. I didn't like the idea of accepting money from him, but Kara said she knew he had to do it to apologize to us. She was right. And besides, we didn't have the money for a good lawyer. Monday morning, Kara got dressed to go before the board of directors. I dressed the boys and then put on pants and a sports jacket. Kara looked at me and asked, "Where are you going?" "We're taking the boys to Mom's and I'm going with you. I made this mess and I'll be with you to the end. You're not going through this alone." She cried and kissed me. After dropping the boys off, we drove to the office and went up to the reception area. The receptionist came out and asked Kara to come into the room. Kara asked me to wait for her. She walked into the conference room and was asked to sit down. "What's up, Kara?" Emma asked. "No worse than one would expect, but I have John backing me up," Kara replied. "How's John? How's he coping with the pressure?" "Well, he's waiting for me in the waiting room. He didn't want me to deal with this alone." "John's in the waiting room. Ask him to come in," Emma replied. The receptionist asked me to come in. I sat down next to Kara and took her hands. "How are you doing, John? How are your hands?" Emma asked. "They're getting back to normal. They'll be fine in a couple days," I replied. "John, Kara, we think we have some good news for you. We had a visit from Ray a while back. If anything, John, you did a great job with him. Anyway, we broached the subject of the allegations you made last week. Of course, Ray said it wasn't true. Then we asked him what provoked John to attack him. Of course, he couldn't answer that question." Another council member continued. "Ray said that while the charges cannot be proven, which we agree with, He is willing to drop the charges against John if you, Kara, drop the harassment charges against him and do not take disciplinary action against him. So, Kara, this is at your disposal. Are you willing to drop the harassment charges against Ray if he drops the assault charges against John? Kara cried, squeezing my hands. I saw Emma's eyes start to water as well. God, yes, thank you so much. I don't know what to say, Kara cried. I had something to say. Emma and everyone else, I want to thank you for your actions too, and I don't mean to sound ungrateful, but should my wife still work under Ray? I'm afraid I'm going to have a hard time accepting that. Another board member said, We've had to think about that too. We could suggest it, but Kara has to make the decision. Kara, would you be willing to take over the department? I don't understand. You said there would be no disciplinary action. Where will Ray go if I get promoted? Kara asked. He'll go back to West Virginia. He complained after he signed the lawsuit, but we told him it wasn't disciplinary action. It was just a good business move. He will be on sick leave for about a month, and then he will be reassigned. We're not going to send him back in the condition he's in now. So, Kara, should this be considered an acceptance of a promotion? Kara looked at me. So, honey, should I accept the position? She smiled at me. Sure, just don't work so late. The guys and I will cook dinner for you. I smiled back. Emma said, Okay, I think we did a pretty good job. Oh, Kara, I hope you'll be considerate of my situation. Very much, Emma, very much, and thank you so much for everything, Kara replied. When we left the conference room, Dan was standing there smiling. I didn't shake his hand, but I gave him a hug. He was a true friend. When we got in the car, I told Kara to call Mom and Dad and invite them over for dinner. We were paying. We had some great news to share with them. I decided it would be a good start in accepting each other. It's been 2 years since all of this happened. Our lives have really gotten better. When one of us goes too far, we use the word hard-headed. This is to let the other know that we need to talk things out. I still look out for women, but I let Kara know what I've seen. I always reply, but my place is better. Kara tells me she can live with that. Watch, but not touch. The kids are in school now, so the days are much calmer. I told Kara I was going to look for a job. That same day, I got a call from my father-in-law. John, Kara called and said you're looking for a job. Is that true? Yes, Dad, it is. He told me when we had dinner to call him Dad, which I do. The boys are in school and I'd like to get some work. I have an opening in a warehouse. It only pays $30,000 a year there, but it's honest labor and you can rest when my grandkids are home. We can even find a way to give you a summer vacation. My grandchildren come first. He realized that family came first. I accepted the offer and called Kara at work. We met for lunch and invited Dan and Emma to come along. We asked them to be godparents to Jimmy and Jerry. The most important thing Kara and I learned is that we need to communicate more with each other. We don't need to assume anything. We need to ask each other. Our lovemaking is still great. We have friends that Kara had and friends that I had. All of our friends realize that they have to accept both of us or neither of us. The end. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe to my channel and watch for the next video.